Hello everyone, welcome back again to the Education Diary, day number 2. It's going to be introduction to the Linux. And as usual in day number 1, we checked out some of the very basic commands. And today we are going to be moving forward with some of the more interesting things which we can do in Linux. And of course today I'm going to be working on overall 3 operating systems, if you can say. Like I'm also having Linux, I'm also having Windows, and I'm also having Mac operating system. So I would be performing overall some things to make you understand that how actually Linux works and how Linux is more powerful when it's compared with the Windows operating system. So after all these sessions, I would be personally, thinking if you guys are planning to switch your operating system. Because as usual, I told you that if you want to open your Gmail or if you want to work on any of the thing, you can just go with the Linux, because Linux is much more secure, having more privacy authentications when it's compared with the Windows operating system or even MacBook. So yeah, let's go and proceed with by login into the user. So as usual, we were having the user parallel, so we are going to be logging into this particular user. Of course, you can make a new user, you can log in into a new user. So yep, all right, so we are having our as usual Ubuntu, right? So apart from that, as I told you, that it's very important that if you can that upgrade your system. So let me just increase the font size, and I think so now the Linux screen is visible, and here you can see that I'm also having Windows 11. So I will be taking Windows 11 also into consideration, and we'll be working on that as well, right? So yep, first of all, as usual, if you remember, we have to log in into the admin panel, or we can say the admin user. So it's going to be like this, and yeah, right now I am in my root directory. Once actually I am inside this, what I can do is I can simply go and check out for the IP address. And as usual, the command for checking IP address into Linux is ifconfig. So here you can see that this is basically the IP address, right? Now what I can do is I can go into the Windows machine and I can search for the CMD, because as usual it is basically same like the terminal, right? I personally think so that I cannot increase the size of this, but if I can, no, I don't think so that I can increase the size of this. All right, so just basically not good, right? Yep, now it's fine. So let me just close this, and let me just come here. So if you just try carefully to see this screen, there is something written my name, right? And what I can do is I can go here and I can just write ipconfig. Now in the Linux we are having ifconfig, but in this it's going to be ipconfig, right? So it's going to be ipconfig, and if like here you can see that IPv4 address is 10.211.55.51, but in Linux we are having 10.211.55.55. so what I can use is like I can just try and to ping, right? So suppose if I'm having this Linux machine, if I want to ping my Windows, so I can use a command ping, which is one of a very popular command, and the IP address of the Windows, which is going to be 55.51, right? So once if I hit enter, so you can see that the ping command is actually not found. But what I can do is I can go into my Windows and I can try to ping the IP address of my Linux .55. So if you see, then here pinging 10.211.11, if I'm not wrong, this was only the, oh sorry, it is basically 55.55. so let's start again, and let me change the IP address to 55.55. all right, so here actually you can see that yes, I'm getting the reply from the Linux machine. So if you are getting such kind of message, so that means it's really fine, right? So here you can see that packets has been sent for and the received is for. That means it's working. The internet connection is really working between these two operating systems, and the 0% loss is basically of the packets. Now ping command is very great, right? But from the Linux, if I'm trying to ping the Windows, it's not even working. So let's try to install the ping. So we can go with the apt install and ping. So I think so after this it should be working. You should explicitly select one to install, so no installation candidate. All right, so I think so we should be having this. Let's try for writing only ping. but ping command is actually not being found. So we can go and we can check for apt install inetTools or go with utils. All right, so the ping command in Linux is not found. This is something weird. Of course, I have to upgrade and update the system, but it's going to be taking a lot of time. So there should be a single individual command which should actually install the ping command. So what I can do is I can simply go and search here, ping command, not found in Ubuntu. So what we can do is we can install the ping command directly. So here, as you can see, that we have to update, right? So we have to update the Linux first of all, and after that we can use this command. Let's see if it works here. Let's hit enter. All right, so it's working. So if you want to update your system, you can update, but as usual, updating the time, it's like taking a lot of time to update and upgrade the Ubuntu system. So now I think so the ping command should work from the Linux to the Windows. All right, so now let's try ping 10.211.55.51. All right, so here also you can see that we are getting the response from the Windows operating system. So this is the important step in the field of, like, we can say security, or in the field of networking, that you should be getting the that ping request. If you are sending a ping request, you should be getting the ping response. Like, this just tells us that yes, there is a connectivity, there is a network flowing on between these two operating systems. It's very, very important to see the IP address. So this IP address 10.211.55.51 is the IP address of the Windows, right? But of the Linux, it is at last 55. So this is really important, that right now we are pinging the Windows system, and from Windows we are pinging the Linux system. So it's working really, really fine. Now, like in the Linux, there is something which is known as firewall. Of course, in Windows also you're having firewall. It's very, very important to have your firewall started so that no one can actually send you the pinging request. Because if you're having the pinging request, now what I can do is, suppose if I'm getting the response from the Windows, of course it's open, right? What I can do is, if you remember last time we used nmap to find the open ports. Now what I can do is I can go for 10.211.55.51. Now I'm just targeting the Windows operating system to check for the open ports into the Windows operating system. If I hit enter, so it's going to be taking some time, and here you can see that I can basically see the ports which are opened in Windows. So this is really, really important, and of course a problematic thing, that you can also see that I can also see the MAC address of my Windows, and of course I'm using parallel. So yes, if you're having up your ping command, if your Windows is having the open ports, so we can use Linux to enter into the Windows by various methods which we can use. But that's why, as I said, that try not to have your ping command being working. Now what I can do is I can go into my Windows, let's change some settings, let's implement some firewall so that ping command from Linux doesn't work, right? And after that our Windows is going to be more and more secure. So what I can do is I can go into the firewall, let's search. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be searching for firewall. So yep, now we are having Windows Defender Firewall with advanced security. You can also go for Windows Defender Firewall. I'm going to be opening this. Now of course I'm using 3 operating system. It might take some time to load, so let's wait. And yes, here we are having the firewall. But before that, let's check if the firewall is turned on or turned off. So what I can do is I can search for firewall, and I think so let's open this one. All right, so here as you can see that the Windows firewall is actually not turned on, right? So what I can do is I can go here, turn Windows Defender Firewall on or off. And here you can see that the firewall is basically turned off inside the Windows operating system. So what I can do is turn on and turn on, right? So here you can see that the private network anyone can access, public network anyone can access. So basically you should be having these settings importantly inside your system. Now if I go back to the Linux operating system and if I go again trying to ping the Windows operating system, this is the IP address, and once if I hit enter, now here also you can see that it is still actually working, right? So I can still actually ping to the Windows. Let's stop this and let's go back and let's click on OK, right? And let's try to go once more, and yeah, that's it, right? So if you see that as soon as I click on OK, now the Linux is actually unable to ping to the Windows, and if I'm going to run the nmap, of course it is not going to be giving me the details which actually it gave me above. Let's try to run the command of nmap again, and this was the command. So now you can see that it is just going to be taking a lot of time, and ultimately it's not going to give any kind of response. So here you can see that there was 100% packet loss, because as usual the firewall is actually declining, or it's basically denying the private IP address or the public IP address to access the Windows IP address. So here you can see that I basically run the nmap, and previously if you see, so we were having the port number 135 and 139 being open and 445 which was being mentioned, but right now there is only the MAC address which is being shown. So that means the ports are actually open, but because of the firewall security we cannot actually check the ports of the Windows if they are opened or if they are closed, right? So that is something which can be really awesome. Now what important thing in the form of Linux is, let's turn off the firewall again, because we have to like work more to show. By the way, these settings are not recommended. I would suggest to make it on. So I can go here, I can click on OK. Once I click on OK and once I ping, so it should be started again to ping. So here as you can see that it started again, because as soon as I turned off the firewall. Now if you remember, in Linux we installed a software with the name Wireshark, and which was actually telling us that what are the different networks or being used. So before that, let me just close the firewall of my Linux operating system so that it doesn't gives us any form of packets. So I can basically close this, and I can write Wireshark to open up the tool, and after that we can see that what we can actually capture. All right, so yeah, we are having our software open, and here you can see that we are having Ethernet, and we are having this, of course this is having our IP address. So if I'm going to be clicking on this, and you can see that there is nothing being displayed right now into the software, right? So this is really important in the field of security, and that's why the big companies like Microsoft or the other companies actually use the Linux servers. Now here you can see it is nothing, right? Nothing is being displayed, but as soon as I go onto my computer and I just send any ping request to my Linux machine, so if I'm just going to be sending just a ping request, right, and as soon as I click and I came back to my Linux, so here you can see that we are having the ping request coming from the Windows. Now the IP address you can see, so .51, it is actually coming from the Windows machine, right? And if I go down, so here you can simply see that yes, we are having some ping request coming. The source address is basically what is the destination address and so on, what are the protocol which is being ICMP and the ARP. So of course when we are going to be moving forward with more and more advanced sessions, so we will be understanding what is the ARP and ICMP protocols, right? What are the port numbers through which we are basically sending on. But here as you can see that this is something, as soon as I sent a request from the Windows, it is actually showing me that yes, the request is coming to my Linux machine. And by watching this, I can say that someone is trying to check my operating system, right? So of course I have to implement firewall on my Linux machine so that no one can ping me. And this basically happens with a website, right? So if I want to ping any website, I can just run the command ping google.com, and it is going to be giving me the IP address of any website. So suppose if I go back here and if I just close the Wireshark, right, and I just use ping google.com, and once I hit enter, so here you can see that yes, the IP address of Google is this one, right? So the IP address, if you want to find IP address of any website, you can just use this command and it is actually going to be giving you the IP address of that particular website. Of course, we can use the ping command to check the connectivity between our system and the website. So suppose if the website is down, right? So we can try the ping command, like, is the website really alive? So in the field of these networking or security, the word alive means that, okay, the website might be down, but the server is up, right? So server is up means that yes, the website is really fine. Of course, it might be down because of lots of requests. But sometimes if you're not getting response by using the ping command, that means the website is down and the server is down. So the server is actually dead, right? So yes, this is the IP address. And as usual, this is something which we really did very basic, right? How to implement a firewall into the Windows operating system, or how to work on the Linux machine to check for the IP addresses by using some ping command, or you can just go with some of the websites and etc, right? So this is a really good one to work inside the Windows and as well as into the Ubuntu operating system. Now you can use any other Linux operating system. You can go with the CentOS, or you can go with the Kali Linux, which is one of a really we can say important Linux system nowadays, which is being used by so many cybersecurity professionals. But yeah, this is just the overall view. And of course, if you're having any questions, so you can just ask in the live, or during the live, or after the live, you can just comment down. Apart from that, I think so there are going to be many other things which we are going to be covering on in the future webinars. For right now, I think so that's it. That's not very we can say lengthy webinar, but I personally wanted to show you this so that you can understand the importance of Linux and Windows. Inside the Linux, we are having so many great tools which can let us know that if someone is trying to connect with a computer. For an example, I'm not sure that in my Windows I'm having SSH, but if I write SSH, so yeah, the SSH is actually, yes, it is in my computer. Now what I can do is, like, SSH is one of a very great protocol. It basically lets us or help us to connect with any other operating system, and we can access that operating system really easily. All right, so what I can do is I can try the SSH command here. So what I can do is SSH and parallels. So that means this is something, the username of my Linux machine, and the IP address. So it's going to be 10.211.55.55. Of course, this is the IP address of my Linux machine, -p for the port number, and the SSH port number is 22. Let me just check if we are having the parallels. If I'm not wrong, this was the username, right? So parallels, Ubuntu Linux, and that's it. So I think so this should be giving us some kind of info. Once if I run the command on Windows, so are you sure you want to continue connecting? So I go with the yes. So this is basically asking me for the Linux password, right? So here, as you can see, that this 10.211.55.55 is the IP address of my Linux machine, and the parallels is the username, and it is basically asking me for the password of my Linux machine, right? So I'm trying to gain access into my Linux machine by using Windows, and if I write the password, so if I hit enter, so you can see that right now in my Windows I am having parallels @ Ubuntu Linux. That means from my Windows I'm able to connect to the Linux machine. And if I now go, I can go try for ls, I can go for desktop. If you remember, we were having these commands, and if I do ls, so here you can see that I'm having the editdiary.txt, which is in my Linux, right? So yeah, if you remember that we created the editdiary.txt file in my Linux, but from Windows I can open this txt file, I can edit this. So that means I basically get access to the Linux machine. That's why it's really important to have we can say security into the operating systems. And what I can do is I can again open the Wireshark, right? Once I open the Wireshark, and all right, so it's opening fine. Let's go to the Ethernet, and right now there is nothing. What I can do is I can just exit and try to reattempt and re-log in. So what I can do is, let's do this. So I can simply write down exit. All right, so now let's run the command again, and see, let me just stop, and let me just start capturing, continue without saving. So this is totally new, right? So you can see on the Linux machine it's totally new. But as soon as I run this command, all right, so I can just write the password, and that's it. So basically I log in into the Linux, but onto my Wireshark tool. Now you can see that you are having tons and tons of requests coming on from the Windows. What I can do is I can just search simply SSH, and here you can see that yes, the IP address 10.211.55.51, which is the IP address of the Windows, actually tried to gain access or try to use the SSH protocol in order to gain access into my computer, right? So you're having a lot of things. You can see that we are having the source address and the destination address and the time at which it basically tried, and the encrypted packet actually tells you that it was successful in order to gain access into our Linux machine, right? Of course, the password I knew, that's why I put the password here. But if you don't know the password, so then also there are certain ways through which we can try to gain access into the Linux machine. But here the important part which you can see is that yes, it is written parallels at the rate Ubuntu. That means our Linux machine is somehow gain access, it is being compromised by the Windows machine. And the same we can do in the Linux as well. Like in Linux, we can try to use SSH to gain access into the Windows operating system. We can download, upload, or whatever we want. So this is something, the overall view of somehow the introduction to SSH, introduction to TCP, ICMP, right? So these are some of the very really basic protocols, and this is something which is not a part of right now, but just an introductory how the Linux actually is so powerful, or how the commands or the CLI interfaces are so much powerful that we can work on command line interfaces. Of course, graphical user interfaces are not so much powerful, so that we can try to gain access into any other operating system. But this is something, just an example, right? I hope so you can understand that yes, I'm using two operating systems just to demonstrate you that this is suppose a victim machine and this is a hacker or an attacker machine, and attacker or hacker is using a Linux and the victim is using a Windows operating system. So this was just an overall view of trying to tell you guys that how easy it is to gain access by using the command line interfaces between the two operating systems. And if you are going to be having any questions, you can just ask to the education diary, or you can just comment down below after the live session ends.